There we go for another rock and roll. We're gonna let the main out. Priestess of the goddess, rainbow dragon got it. It is the Sabbath, and I got those kisses for a willingly loving pledge your allegiance, legions. Keep my holy, sacred, and divine name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Adrian, Hannah, dragon, rainbow dragon, aka priestess of the GODDSS. Yes, I said priestess, not a hoe. Priestess, Papa Crowley's daughter, going on a last before April 20th long weekend, celebrating every day carpe diem with a star kisses at poetic. Rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, all those butchers, and the nurses, the doctors, the truckers on the road. Gotta give them a little rock and roll, give some charity, financially stressed, but grateful, thankful, rent's paid, electricity bills paid, and got food, got coffee, and I got me some LOVE here from my neighborhood. We're gonna go around the body, see if we gotta go do it, and see how we're gonna get that meditation. And firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and the grocery store clerks, that's what we gotta get doing with that. And that's what we're gonna check a little bit of rock and roll here now, and that's what we're gonna get doing on that. And see if there's a fridge here. See, there's a community fridge, and we gotta get doing now. Oh, empty. So we gotta go see. There we are. And we're gonna go in the sun, in the sun, in the sun. And that's what we gotta get doing with that. And that's what we gotta get doing on the go, you know. So it's something which we gotta get doing, and we gotta get on that meditation side, you know, and gotta get on that loving, you know. So here we are in the sun, and we gotta get it for the lovers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And I'm gonna go check in the minus account. Adrian, Hannah, dragon, laying the foundations for the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom with 700 trillions of kisses, 718 trillions of kisses, trillions. And I will, WIL to build. Although financially stressed, will to build on the Canadian-US border, the goddess temple, the forgotten goddess temple. Let's build it together, the forgotten goddess temple on the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger, greater, more majestic than the Harbaugh Ball. Oh, my king the sun, piercing those clouds. Oh, my king the sun, piercing those clouds. I don't know about King Angie, that's my king the Pope. The sun, and that's the only king that we got. Dragon Army. Sun salutations, rock and roll, or keep it secular, rock and roll. Left, right, and center, pledge your allegiance, legions, family, help support, build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border, and oh, I love those yellow flowers in the corner. Nice yellow flowers there. Yeah, I love yellow flowers. They're nice, and they're there in the corner, but of course it's for everybody to enjoy, and that's what we're gonna get doing with a little bit of a spring cleaning coming, I guess. Gotta get it on that Monday. Big Monday, big cleaning every day, I guess. Get dirty, get back clean. Farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, truckers, grocery store clerks, firefighters. Pledge your allegiance, legions, our family, support the dream. Manifesting as the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. It is the Sabbath until Sunday, sunset. The Sabbath begins at midnight, so it began a few hours ago. In the 1 second after midnight, that is already Saturday. So although financially stressed, grateful, thankful, rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and got some, not a lot. Got some dollars, and to get it on some dollars, and that's what we're gonna go get it. That's what we're gonna go get it with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing for the love, and that's what we gotta build the forgotten goddess, GODDSS, forgotten goddess, GODDSS, goddess temple. She doesn't need the goddess that is my temples, you know. She's got the pyramids, and we gotta go doing with that, and we gotta go doing with that, and that's what we gotta go doing. Oh, thank you. Thank you for backing up. That's the proper way to do it, to clear the pedestrian, and I appreciate it. You know, we got to look for our prudence, and you gotta watch it with the cars, you know, because I have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, you know. So having that, I have obligations, duties, and responsibility, which are not, of course, on the normal side of circumstance, but since I am in the public, we, you, us, me, you, we have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and I gotta put into practice the responsibilities of a good Samaritan here, Quebecer, Canadian in Quebec, in the North American Collective. You know, we got those standards, and see my auntie there wearing some red. My auntie wearing some red, my favorite color, and here my Quebecer family, you know, my cousin there driving, going his business, and all my great Quebecer, Canadian, North American family, coast to coast, you know, in the new world, and all ALL who come to join us from all over the world. Is, of course, we have come here to Island of Montreal, HAWK, where we love our French. I speak it on that rock and roll French 24/7, so I love the French language, and I am a Quebecois, you know, I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, so you gotta learn a little bit of that French a little bit. That's what I say for the Dragon Army drills, and I'm a mystic who knows my reincarnations, past lives, 3 of them, were my brothers and sisters in the 50 states. 50 states. In the 50 states, you know. I was born a woman once, and twice a man, and served in the United States Armed Forces. 2 different wars, same army, and gotta turn my head left and right, and there's my auntie there, another auntie, cousins, and all the family here as I roam on this big metropolis, It's 2.5 million people, and hear a little bit of that sound of the train conductors going about east, west, north, and south, and people playing a little bit of that football, North American football, which I love, although, you know, my favorite sport is dancing. Dancing is a sport. I love to dance. Even now I'm shaking a little bit of that head left and right, putting a little bit of those steps in that ballet, which I love. I love all sports, and they're playing a little bit of soccer, and a little bit of vigor there with a little bit of sports. And I will to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the sports complex, the biggest sports complex ever built, where the first inauguration event is going to be the Dragon versus Trump. Dragon versus Trump is having him, and it will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border ever since 2018. Ever since 2018, you know, when Donald Trump made the stupid mistake. Granddaddy Trump, I would have not voted for you, Granddaddy. But I would have not voted for Granddaddy Trump. I would have voted for Kamala. I oppose and I counter-project as a Democratic Republican, a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist 50-50, androgynous pansexual, loving that red color. And that's what we got to get doing with that. And that's what we got to get doing with the love. And we got to get on that side of things where, you know, we play that great NFL football and CFL football, and got to get that defense coast to coast. So it was a stupid mistake. Geopolitics, Granddaddy Trump, who taught you geopolitics? What a stupid mistake, Granddaddy Trump, who taught you geopolitics? And that's my special interest, you know, as somebody who's neurodivergent. I live with a condition which is known as Asperger's, high functioning autism, and geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport and fitness activity, and rock and roll are my favorite interest. And so those are a constant for years and years and years. Even today, this morning, I couldn't help but proceed and look into a little bit of that geopolitical events, which is the escalation in the European conflict with the first deployment of German troops across the NATO sphere, across the NATO sphere. So that was the first time. It hasn't happened in many decades. Not years, decades. A decade is 10. So decades. Decades. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine decades deployment, and that's what it is with that. We gotta get it for deployment, and that's what we gotta get doing with the XYZ, and we gotta get doing with the lovebirds on the side of the foul on the play, learning some penalties. I saw there's so many things to learn, even about gridiron, eh? There's so many rules, but sometimes, we gotta get second chances, third, and that's what we gotta get doing. But about what I was saying, that Asperger's is not a mental illness, it's a neurological mental divergent condition, and we have special interest among other characteristics, which can seem odd and strange and weird. And one of it is special interest, and where it can be super intense, super concentrated, super dedicated when involved in those special interests. So mine is geopolitics, sports and fitness, and dancing and rock and roll. And so that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with the love, and we gotta get doing with that. Love is action, and all this civilization is a privilege, and geopolitics, Bien Trump should sit down, and leaders of Quebec, Canada should sit down and really discuss geopolitics live for like a full hour. So we have to say some LOVE, also, because we cannot just base our strength and force and power, because as much as I understand, and to a certain percentage I support peace through strength, like 50-50. We cannot just base our geopolitical ideologies on peace through strength, and yes, it is tough geopolitical times, but we cannot just place it on that peace to strength. It has to be counterbalanced by love and understanding. Just like our security forces are armed forces also. We have to integrate my CIT, Citizen Integration Tree for Canada, United States, for the new Dragon 911 protocols, for the security and service, defense, security, service and defense, SSD principles for the formation of the Dragon Army, for North American Collective, because we constitute a collective, and I'm not a Trump supporter at all, and I do say to my fellow Canadians, I'm not going to vote because the king is absent, and I'm not going to vote for some prime minister, whoever it's going to be, who's going to pledge allegiance to the King of England, King Charles, and his heirs. That has to go. That gotta go. So that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that gotta go. So to King Charles, I wonder what they're doing, a little bit of work here. So to King Charles and his heirs, I rather pledge allegiance to my brothers and sisters here, all who come to join us, my brothers sitting there, and my sisters, my cousins, all who are here on the side, and we gotta get it on that for the public workers. Imagine all the work being done underneath. It's quite something which we gotta appreciate, eh? Otherwise we don't have the connection, and we don't have the running water to get it properly there. How many they are, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that, and so we're gonna get putting on the love, I wonder, imagine to have electricity, running water with that, and all the running water which we have, we gotta get doing on the love side of things, and we gotta get doing on the love, we gotta get doing on that XYZ, and that's what we gotta get doing on some loving, and we gotta get that. Friends with benefits only from now on, pledge your allegiance, and we gotta get it on the XYZ, and gotta get it on the do, so it's something which we gotta do on some loving, and that's what we gotta get doing, if it's just, action is required. In other words, action is required. All this public works, man, across North America. I just do a meditation. All the public workers gotta give some rock and roll. Let me sing some rock and roll channeled. Aspie, but love that rock and roll, Androgynous Aspie, pansexual, loving that BDSM switch. No need to spy on me. Secret services of China, Russia, don't swim across the Atlantic nor the Pacific to come spy on a rainbow dragon who loves. Oh yeah. Who loves yellow flowers? Who loves yellow flowers? Who loves yellow flowers? Who loves yellow flowers? Get ready. Rock and roll for the. Hey! Workers in the public workers. Gotta send them some loving with brains and muscle build machines. With brains and muscle build machines. Brains and muscle build machines. Brains and muscle build machines. Thank you for the aqueducts. Thank you for the sewers. Let's go, Dancing Goddess Army, that DGA with the Dragonomy Complementary Covenant Cooperative, calling for the creation of these two institutions, the public-private partnership institutions, and for the public workers, you know, to be of service and security and defense, and to rebuild this North American collective infrastructure of which we are a part of here, and which we are a part of there, and which we have, you know, on the complementary side of things. And like I said, I'm not going to vote because, of course, the king is absent. The king is absent. The king is absent, and it's time for the republic. And I just, in the 21st century, we have to get that republic. Get that republic. And back to my granddaddy Trump, because I've been challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, to fight me in a boxing match, due to the imposition, the stupid geopolitical mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. I understand there are certain things we got to work at the table. I understand we got to work at the table. I have my new table from last year. Still needs some fresh color, some establishment, some embellishment on it. But that stated, to reach a sense of justice, sometimes we got to get that pro-labor and love revolutionary centrist. My universal revolutionary centrism is hand in hand with the CIT, citizen integration theory, the DRT, debt fusion theory, and the DFT, the democratic fusion theory. You know, so that's what we're going to go doing with that, and that's what we're going to go doing on the XYZ, and that's what we're going to have to do it on the love side of things, you know. So that's what we got to do. We have to do. It requires doing. Look at all this work here being done. Gotta sing some rock and roll, and I don't mind washing some feet. I don't mind washing some feet if you gotta, because I will to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, where one of my top 5 favorite Super Bowls is known as the Blackout Ball, also known as the Hardball Ball. So it is the Hardball Ball, which we got to be building. I mean, the Coliseum on the Canadian-US border joined 50-50. Canadian workers and Canadian steel and aluminum and all the materials, the knowledge, the brains, the materials, the brains, the muscle, the brains, got to be 50-50 on it. For sports in perpetuities, for sportis in perpetuities, for sportis in perpetuities, for sportis in perpetuities, for sportis in perpetuities, in perpetuities, in perpetuities. And that's what we gotta get doing for sportis in perpetuities, you know, to have for sports in perpetuity, to have for sports in perpetuity, to have for sports in perpetuity, you know, so 24/7. So to get the Dragonomy, the public-private partnership, North American Integree SSD principle infused, and encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, and we gotta go, and so we gotta get doing with that, and so we gotta get doing on the go, so gotta get doing on the XYZ, and that's what we gotta get doing on the Canadian-US border, building that North American People's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the stadium where the Hardball Ball, aka Blackout Ball, one of my top 5 Super Bowls, top 5 favorite Super Bowls, where my 49ers lost. Not all top 5 are in the top 5. Not all have to do with where my 49ers went and won a lot, because my 49ers are the empire coming back to life, empire coming back, empire of the 80s, you know, or going into the 90s, 80s, 90s. You know, anyways, so back to what I was saying is that is the one of my top 5s, and one of my other favorite Super Bowls were actually not a lot of people liked it, but I liked it. It was the last Super Bowl won by Tom Brady with the Patriots. It was against the Rams, and it was very low score. The lowest ever score was 13-3, 2019. It was 13-3, so total 60 points, 16 points scored. 13-3. 13-3. 13-3. That was a very defensive, like, the score was so low. The score was so low, you know. The score was so low, and I'm not gonna vote because, like I said, the king is absent, and we gotta get it for the, whatever this is, poster there. But that's anonyme, I guess. So, as much as I am for my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, and if there is ever an invasion, I'll be the first one to roll up and get that defense coast to coast, but only for defense. My protocols initiatives are only for defense. So back to what I was saying, although in gridiron I do like a lot of offensive plays, especially some running plays, I do like defense and gridiron, North American football. But dancing is my favorite sport, so I call for the building of the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, and of course other buildings, and that's what we gotta get doing on that, and so we gotta get doing on the love, you know. So it's something which we gotta go interjection, and we gotta go turning the heads left and right, and gotta go doing on that sun salutation, and that's how we gotta get on the love, you know. So something which we gotta be doing for the love, and so we gotta get doing on the XYZ, and so we gotta get doing now. That's what we gotta get doing on that love, and here we gotta do it. And I gotta check dust here. There's so much dust. You gotta get it on that side of things, and that's what we gotta get doing on the dust love part, and we gotta get it on the love, and we gotta get it for the love, you know. So something which we gotta do, you know. So it's something which we gotta see, and we gotta see how much I'm in the red, you know. How much I'm in the red. So yeah, I'm in the red. I'm in the red. But got trillions of kisses. So I'm $9,000, $946 in debt, and I pay 10% interest. So. Yeah, financially struggling. I got enough money to go get a bottle of wine for the weekend, and I got cash, so that's something which I gotta be, I guess, grateful about, you know. Being grateful is important, and gratitude 24/7, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks. And now that I touched the handle, I mean the screen, and I touched the buttons, I'm always concerned about bacteria, germs, microbes, and I keep the protocols that were established during COVID, and COVID, I survived it. For me, COVID was like death, pestilence, and disease, you know. I really thought I was gonna die during COVID, which I kind of did, and I'm being reborn between February 2020, and of course February 2020 and March 2020, of course I had COVID, and of course I survived it. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. It was like death, pestilence, and disease, and that's what we got to do for that rock and roll, and that's what we got to keep on doing with the love side of things, and that's what we got to get on the promising of hope of a post-COVID world for the North American Collective. And I believe my Trinity of theories, and I know my CIT, citizen integration theory, my DRT, dental fusion theory, and my DFT, the democratic fusion theory for the consequential creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army and the Dancing Goddess Army. We're just gonna disinfect a bit. I'm gonna disinfect the hands, because gotta disinfect, you know. So that's what we're gonna go doing with that. And what we gotta get on that go, you know. Turn your heads left to right, and that's what we gotta get doing, you know. Left and right, and the disinfecting on my hands with my checking if I have. Hopefully I have. Hopefully I have my own, and I didn't bring the backpack. And I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to the washroom. To the washroom to wash my hands. To the washroom there. That's gonna be an alternative. Just with soap, because I touched, you know, the screen. So I don't know how many people touched the screen prior to me touching it. So that information I don't know. It's possible that you know, because you gotta touch the code when you put in the code. You know, the code. You gotta touch the number. So how many? Now this is gonna be an ASPE a little bit. Bear with me, a little ASPE moment, because ASPEs are neurodiverse. Our brains are different, and sometimes we get a little bit of that notification, and a little bit of that notification for it, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta turn our heads left and right, you know. Proceed and turn the heads left and right, and that's what we gotta get doing on that, you know. Turning left and right the heads, and we gotta get it on the go. So we gotta get doing, you know. So we gotta proceed, you know, to get a little bit of that love side of things, you know. So foul on the play, false start, encroachment, holding, foul on the play, holding, encroachment, foul on the play, 5-yard penalty. Anyways, bottom line is that there's microbes, bacteria, germs, and that is a possibility by me having touched it with the right hand. I utilized three fingers. I'm gonna turn here. Okay. I turn here. Thank you for stopping, because that's pedestrian. That's how we gotta get doing with that. And good for you. She nodded, said sorry, and smiled, and I smiled back, because, you know, prudence. But that's a pedestrian, so that's where the car gotta stop. You know, there's rules in the public, and I got myself obligations and duties and responsibilities, which I don't have, you know. Otherwise I don't have, with that. So, you know, that's what we gotta get doing. Sometimes we just gotta start over, and we gotta do it on the XYZ, and that's what we gotta get doing on the left, right, and center, you know. So something which we gotta get on the go side of things, and, you know, we gotta think about others in the public. So back to what I was saying, I touched the screen with my hand, mostly three fingers. But nonetheless, so many other people touched it. I don't know when it was last time that it was cleaned. I don't know when it was cleaned last time. Last time maybe it was cleaned yesterday, maybe, because it's today's Saturday, so maybe it was Friday. So Friday, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. So Friday, maybe it was clean Friday, you know, but whatever the case may be, and maybe it was Friday, and that's how we gotta do it, you know. So maybe there was Friday, you know, Friday or Saturday, I don't know. But here we got, you know, I got soap and I got water, so I gotta Oh yeah. So now I disinfected. Now I got the hands clean because you never know, you know. So that was my alternative, and thank you, Public Worker Day, to build this. And it's something which the public and the private, but I encourage strongly people to please maintain the protocols in the public of public hygiene on COVID, because there's microbes, bacteria, germs. I'm just gonna see. I'm just gonna see if there's some guitar. Just gonna see this somewhere. Oh yeah, that was some good music. That's it, almost noon. So bacteria, germs, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. Gotta LOV, you know, to them to play safely with no violence, you know. So we gotta get doing with that. We're gonna dance and get a little bit of that kisses, get a little bit of that, whatever they're doing in the public there, to get it on the love. And so we gotta get to see that tree there. I wonder if it fell from lightning. So we gotta get doing on that. And
don't pull my hoodie, bro. Stop pulling it.
so they're doing it. Have some fun. Have some fun. Have some fun, man. No violence. Have some fun. Laugh. And the youth, man. You smiled at me and smiled back at them, and it's like I don't have children, but they're my children also, and that's how we gotta get doing, and have to channel the aggression and the energy, you know. The energies need to be channeled with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the challenge of the aggression, you know. Super important to channel, and they were smiling and having joy, and gotta get some of that love in for them, you know, life, and that their joy. My joy, that's important. That's, you know, I don't have family, but I guess they're my children there with that. In ways, like my family, Quebecers, and children, and cousins, and black-white, and white-black, and some dragon, some not, you know, and some make their redemption, and some get their second chances, and some get their mending ways and change, you know. It's needed, you know. Change myself. I changed. I died during COVID, and gotta get it on that love, you know. And that's what I gotta get doing here. If I would get some millions, I would definitely get some investment in this, and would make a community center. And we need to rebuild the North American inner urban cities. We need to rebuild. Let's get the executive order, Granddaddy Trump, for billions and billions for the North American Ghettos Rehabilitation Act. We need to rehabilitate, and we need to rebuild the ghettos, man. We need to reinvest our brothers and sisters, you know. This is my neighborhood. I used to do laundry right there. I used to do laundry right there. And we need to mass invest, you know, to rebuild our North American inner urban cities, man. We need to rebuild the North American ghettos. Canada North, United States South. We need to revitalize the North American ghettos. We need to rebuild them. We need to rebuild them together and do some good, you know. We need to rebuild the ghettos together, man. Rather than fight for defense. You know, we've noticed that so many things outside, you know, sectarian conflicts and got involved, and you know, we have to focus on the rebuilding of the North American ghettos. That would have been an executive order worthy to support. Where's that one? Granddaddy, where's that one? Executive order, rebuild, mass financing to rebuild the North American ghettos. Then I might say, yeah, that's something I can support. I don't know about that 51st state, because you'll be more like 63, like 13 new ones, you know. It'll be more like 13 new ones. So 13 new ones, you know? Like 13 new ones, you know? That's basically how it would be. But my dream for the fusion of Canada and the United States best, but me and Trump, who taught Trump geopolitics? That's a big question, because, you know, the first and foremost, as I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who has predicted the international conflagration transpiring today. I predicted it back in 2019. Back in 2019, I predicted it, and gotta watch, because I think my fellow citizen there's cousin, whatever, is running, and I gotta watch for the car. So I traverse the street, gotta watch for the car. Get it on the go for that, you know, to get it on the go, so I don't want nobody get hit by a car under my watch, like a hawk. And besides, here we got the Good Samaritan law there. We got the Good Samaritan law there. You know, we got the Good Samaritan law, so we gotta get on that Good Samaritan, man. You know, that good loving. Ain't nobody getting hit by a car, not on my watch, not when I'm in the public. Wherever you be. Not on my watch. Yeah, there's second chances. So, who taught Granddaddy Trump? Who taught Granddaddy Trump? Who taught you geopolitics? Because the first and foremost principle, and this goes vice versa, Canada, US, for us Canadians, and this has to be a yes, our main geopolitical concern, primary political concern is to have the best relations with my brothers and sisters in the US. So geopolitically, that's a constant. That's a constant thing, you know? That's a constant thing, you know? That's not up for negotiation. So our main, as Quebecers, Canadians, our main geopolitical interest is to have the best, most cordial, friendly, loving, cultural, military, security, economic, financial relations with my brothers and sisters in the United States, in the 50 states. And that's also vice versa. That also applies vice versa. So that is mutual. That's a constant. That is not just like the pi number in mathematics, the 3.14. You know the pi number in mathematics, 3.1416, and then the number continues ad infinitum for the circumference of a circle. So there's no yes, there's no no. There's no yes and no, and there's no maybe. So it has been, is, and will be thus. It is a yes. It is a yes. 100%. There's no negotiating that fact. Vice versa. And for the United States also, the main geopolitical interest of the United States is to have the best, most cordial, friendly relations with Canada. That's just vice versa. And there's no way to invite us by bullying and tariffs. Bake some pies, man. 50 pies. 63 pies for the 13 political entities, 10 provinces, and 3 territories, and learn some French. So for Quebec, we're gonna do at the White House, we're gonna have press secretary, my cousin Caroline Leavitt. In a past life, when I served in the 2 different wars, the same U.S. Army, I saved one of her ancestors. So maybe she was born because I saved him in a war. Maybe she was born because I saved him from dying in a war. Maybe her been saved because I saved his ancestor in a war 156 years ago. So that being stated, consequentially, that is the number one primary motive, primary reason, the best relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA. And vice versa, the USA is also vice versa. And that's a constant. That's just There's no negotiating that. Geopolitical fact. They were speaking geopolitics. I'm not speaking Trump supporters, MAGA movement, MAGA ideology. No. Left, right, and center. Left, right, and center for both Canada and the United States. And that's where the geopolitics comes in. Left, right, and center. That is our main principle. Geopolitical interests, number one, to have the best friendly, economic, cordial, sports, cultural relations with the USA, and that's vice versa for the USA and us. That's why we need to build Canada joint on the Canadian-US border, which is there a few kilometers south. My finger's pointing south to the 50 states. Well, actually, the Alaska is that way, but up north, but to, to the other states. So pointing south to most 49 states, I guess 48 with Hawaii if we take out Hawaii. So 48 states. If we take Alaska and Hawaii, you gotta go turn to the north, which is the north and northwest, right? Northwest. Alaska is northwest, so we will be that way because I'm going east now, and I'm going that way. Now that's east. My finger's pointing east. So to have the best cordial, most relations with the United States. So that is just the constant thing. So there's no yes and no in these terms. There's no yes and no. This is not open for negotiation in geopolitics. So that's why I say it's best to say, Trump say it. I made errors myself. I made mistakes. Just say I made a mistake. Just say I made a mistake. I made mistakes. I don't know. I'm stupid sometimes myself with being neurologically diverse. My brain is different and I have to work constantly on my Asperger's characteristics, which sometimes is breaching personal space, repeating things 2-3 times, repeating, having echolalia as a characteristic. So that is something which we got to be doing with that. So the best, most cordial interest is to have the best interest for the cordial, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with the love side of things, you know. I love dancing, so I love when I see people dancing in the streets freely, safely, and work out and train, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with the love, you know. So it's something which we gotta impart, you know. That's just something which we gotta do, you know, in the where we are now. In the love side of things, you know. That's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. So something which we gotta be on the side of these things, you know. Something which we gotta be doing, you know. The left, right, and center, you know. And the song is, you know, may I be avenged 11-fold, you know. That's how we gotta get doing. Gotta get doing on that, you know. Something which we gotta be meditating about to get it on the go, and vigilance, prudence, excessive incentives, screams from the haters, got a little bit of thing with it. Every superhero needs this thing, just scream from the haters. Sick ideology, not only cheating, shadow of the beast. Shadow of the beast. Shadow of the beast. I was just thinking about the Shadow of the Beast operation launched by Pam Bondi. Auntie Pam Bondi. My geopolitical analysis and my ideas, of course, for SSS. Service security and defense for SSS. Service security and defense for service security and defense for service security and defense for service security and defense. That's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the love side of things with the more artistic parallel to the geopolitics. Really, the stupid mistake by Trump, you know, we gotta say that is something which we gotta be setting on the scripts. That's how we gotta be imposing the CIT, citizen integration theory, the DRT, debt fusion theory, and the DFT, the democratic fusion theory, for the creation of the universal exchange unit, 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 and it's gonna be, you know, rock and roll 24/7, and that's how we just do it here. gonna go get a little bit of that shopping, and I'm just thinking about Operation Shadow of the Beast, and I don't know about 9/11 being an inside job. Those stickers are often found, and I have questions about Plane 77, but I do know we gotta build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum. Gotta build the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, and this is part one. I'm gonna go shopping, and Sports in Perpetuity, Dragon versus Trump, where the inauguration of that mega biggest ever sports company is gonna be me fighting Donald Trump, and build a forgotten goddess temple, because I created my surviving COVID to the goddess, and build the pyramid, House of the Dragon, red scarlet crimson, shades of red, and be 11 times bigger than the Hardball Ball, Super Bowl, Blackout Ball, aka Hardball Ball, aka Super Bowl was fought, and of course build the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent LGBTQ fellow nation, and here the sun shining while the dark clouds are around about me. That's my Publik King, the sun. So I mean, it's gonna be a joyous shopping occasion. I hope I get it on the budget. Whatever I get needs to be bad, and that's about where we ended with that. And here we are for the Rock&Roll together. So see you later, part 2, maybe not. Just SOP. I'm not gonna film inside to get it on the go, but that's where I gotta Rock&Roll.